swagger, okay? Regardless of what happens out there. Doesn't matter. Keep your swagger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 5-Hole Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're your hosts today, TJ and Maddie. What's going on, buddy?
What is going on, TJ? Listen, I'm gonna be the first person to wish you a Merry Christmas, not in some probably douchey airline Merry Christmas asshole kind of way. So
it's a lot of
Merry
happy
Christmas,
holidays, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody staying PC when they're up in the air.
Yeah, a lot of happy holidays.
To our listeners, man, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, whatever you guys are into. I hope it's a good one. Happy New Year to most of you, and hope it's happy and healthy. You know, let's here. Cheers. I got a whiskey sour. I'm gonna cheers you guys. Anyway, we got your week 12 preview. Week 12, Christmas Eve. We got some empty days in the schedule. It's gonna be a tough one to be streaming in, but I don't know. It looks like I got some notes later on in the episode in regards to this week, but it looks like it's going to be a fun one. But what do you think? Like, let's talk about this last week, man. A couple of these guys, like, still on my teams, and I can't say I'm displeased about it. But let's get into it. Who are some of the standouts from this last week?
Yeah, there was definitely no shortage of players who kind of popped off last week, and not necessarily names that were drafted at the top of the ADP boards, which is really great to see. So we're going to start in Montreal. Patrik Laine, like, have a return, my man. He's had 8 points in the 8 games that he's returned to the lineup. Now, I will say, he's got 4 goals in his last 2 games, all of them on the power play. Both of them in those 2 games were game-winning goals. So he did that on 8 shots, which, is 50% shooting and probably is not going to keep that up. He's got pretty low time on ice. He is the definition of a PP merchant. I think 7 of those 8 points are on the power play. So he has been absolutely dealing in Montreal, which is awesome to see. Our boy Dilly Guns from week 1, right? With the nickname, this guy has just kept it going the whole time. 6 goals, 1 assist in his last 4 games. It's like 3 power play points. He's firing the puck. He's throwing a few riffs in. He's got points in 7 straight. Point per game on the year, if I'm not mistaken, right? 32 games, 32 points.
And 6 goals in his last 4 games. He's just been unstoppable. So I don't know if he's going to be like this. Like, there have been big blocks of nothing in between, or just like, low production kind of blocks with Dylan Gunther. So is he going to be a big splash and kind of do we get the up and down with him? Is that going to be how his seasons go?
I mean, if he's bringing that shot volume consistently and throwing some riffs in, he's got the best deployment you could probably have with that team. So, I mean, I would say the only ups and downs we're going to get from him is just when, he goes through some cold patches in terms of conversion. But otherwise, they're feeding him the puck. He's a primary source of scoring chances on that team. And I really don't see that changing based on what he's been doing to this point. There's really been no lulls to speak of. There's been a lot of splash, but he's been sort of consistently doing it. He doesn't go 2.5 weeks without doing anything, right? And maybe as a game or two. And then more recently, he's really been more consistent.
There you go. I'm going to throw Nick Robertson into the mix. He's got goals in 3 straight. That line that he's on, Bobby McMahon coming back, Max Domi and Nick Robertson himself, Nicky Bobby. They've got 8 goals, 8 assists, but between them on that line in Toronto right now.
Down lineup scoring too. They've been craving on that team.
They're doing it. And I got to throw a shout out to our guy. We very wisely took Sherwood off the board for our streamer death match last week. So hat trick immediately. As soon as we got off the mic,
literally
a hat trick. Yeah, it was nuts. So it was a good thing that we kept him. He was kind of like the holographic of the card pack. So
that's right.
yeah.
I mean, Johnny T got 3 goals. We were just in
Mhm.
Leafland. I mean, we'll stay in Leafland. John Tavares just continues an awesome year. I mean, this guy's one of many that we talk about, but a real draft steal. He's got 6 points in his last 3. He's shooting. He's got 10 hits in his last 3 games. Like in my Banger Cats League, he's been consistent top 40, top 35 all year long. Like he's been helping you every single week he's been playing. So hats off to Johnny T. He's playing for a contract. It's certainly not going to look like the one he had.
Yeah.
But it might be starting to look a little bit better.
He's one of those guys you get like crazy late too. It's like him, Scheifele. Like if you're fading C, Tavares is one of those guys that you get close to the double digit rounds. Maybe not that far, but like I think I remember seeing him go in the 7th, 8th, 9th, kind of that area. So him, Scheifele providing substantial value at center this year.
Yeah, and our boy Alan was talking about that just on the I believe it was the weekend preview show for this past week, where he does exactly that. You know, fade center for that exact reason.
Yep.
You know, you're not going to get the absolute top end upside, but if you get 85 to 90% of that production, and you get to draft it 6 rounds later, that's value.
If like when the draft comes around and you wind up in like that 5, 6, 7 spot where you know you're getting a winger, like that's probably. If you're 1, 2, 3 and you're getting McKinnon, McDavid, or Matthews, like you're not fading centers. Obviously, you can't right out of the gate do that stuff. But you know, if you wind up with like a McKinnon or not a McKinnon, a Rantanen or Kucherov, things like that, you start off strong on wing, then you can probably start looking at these guys. But that's an off-season conversation. We're 8 months away from talking about this kind of stuff. But
it's always draft season.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. They've been doing. I mean, Johnny T, 31 points in 32 games. He's looking pretty good this year, man.
He is. I'm going to throw a shout out here to a Chicago streamer. So anybody who happened to own Teuvo Teravainen over the past 4 games, he got 2 more assists today. So he's got 1 goal and 9 assists in his last 4 games.
Insane.
Pretty much all of those points are at even strength. Like none of it's on the power play. I think he's taken like 6 shots in those 4 games. And like, okay, so some context, obviously he had 13 points in 30 games prior to this sort of breakout here. My question is, a guy with 13 points through 30 games that was Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday this week and was 15% owned. Again, tip of the cap and congrats to the owner, like the person who actually got his production. Because like we can talk about it and it looks great on paper, but again, all heavy nights, only 3 days, 15% on Chicago, and had done dick all coming into that. So I mean, like if you held on to him and he just keeps doing it, congrats.
Yeah, big ups on him. We haven't really. I feel like it's because it's kind of assumed at this point, but Edmonton's back, right? Like they're all back. Zach Hyman's
they
back.
Are all back.
Yeah, maybe not so much like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, but in terms of the team and everything, I kind of just wanted to shine some light on that because
they're getting that down roster scoring too, at least over the past few weeks.
Yeah, big time. So at least you and I, like, we haven't talked about Edmonton kind of just working their way back, but and it does feel like it's kind of a given at this point. You know, McDavid, Draisaitl, they're going to do their thing, right? Like we knew it was going to happen, but definitely wanted to acknowledge it. You
can kind of hear the trade window closing on a few of those players.
Yeah. Let's see what happens when Evander Kane comes back, if he comes back.
We got a few goaltenders that really did have some standout performances over the past week. I mean, the obvious here, like we'll bury the lead. Linus Ullmark, like 7 games in a row, the win streak continues. Mm-hmm. He's a .99 GAA over those 7 games. Got 2 shutouts, like a 967. He's top 10 or better in every single nerd stat that matters. Delta Femic save with percentage, goal saved above expected. You pick it. He's top 10 in all of them. So he has been doing it. One caveat, we were talking about this just before we went live. You know, those 7 wins, I'm going to roll these teams off to you and you tell me who you're really scared of. Detroit, Nashville, Anaheim, Carolina, there's one. Pittsburgh, we'll throw them a bone because they've been hot lately. Seattle, Calgary. So, I mean, there's a lot of kind of crappy teams on that list. And like the Sens themselves have only scored over 3 goals 1 time in that 7-game win streak. So, I mean, they're winning a lot of 3-1 and 3-2 hockey games. So, I mean, he's definitely been amazing. I'm hoping the team gives him a little bit more firepower and support because he's not going to play at a 1 GAA over the rest of the year. So,
man, hate to think you're jinxing it. I'm counting on him big time in a
I got him in our
here.
listener league, man. He's been awesome. And I don't think he's going to stop. I just think that if that regresses a little bit back towards what he would typically do, I'm hoping the team can score more than 3 goals a game to kind of back him up.
They're going to need to. I just looked at their
upcoming.
I mean, they're on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 game road trip. And then they come home for the Sabres. They're back away at Pittsburgh, and then they're home for Dallas. Like they're on the road a lot coming up here lately. Their next 5 games: Vancouver, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Dallas. That's tough.
That's a lot of miles.
Yeah, it might be over for Linus Ullmark. Let's see what he can do. All right, I've got some reincarnated faith here in my goalie tandem.
Yeah, we'll stay in the net. Carol Vejmelka, Vejmelka. What's the actual thing here, TJ? What are we going with?
It's one of those.
It's one of those. Yeah. Sorry if you're listening, Carol. No, I've been saying Vejmelka the whole time. We know you're listening, so we say if you're listening.
Yeah, I think it's Vejmelka.
Yeah. 4-game win streak, right? He is actually sleepy tier 1 goalie in terms of nerd stats. Like 918 save percentage. That's 6th in the league. He's like positive 204 Delta Fenwick save percentage, 5th in the league. Like goal saved above expected, he's 4th in the league. I don't know if everybody would put their hand up and say they knew that he was in the top 5 for all those categories, but he's doing it, man. And like Ingram is not coming back to help anytime soon. So this is kind of his net.
And who do they have? It's Stauber, right? Jackson Stauber. That's their backup. Man, I don't know. I don't know about that. We talked about Sherwood being off the block for the streamer head-to-head thing that we do. Logan Cooley versus Troy Terry. I'm telling you, man, I think you're in the lead right now, but we both have games against each other tomorrow. So we'll see how it winds up. Cooley's got 2 games, 3 assists. Terry's got 1 goal, 2 assists. You've got the edge on power play points. I don't have any. There's some decent periffs to be had there. Yep. Nothing to write home about, but they're not throwing zeros at you. But we'll see. I think this one is going to come down tomorrow, so we can't call it just yet, I don't think. All right, injuries. A lot of guys coming back. A lot of big names coming back. I had Dahlin in here, but I think he didn't play tonight. So
no, he didn't.
He's back out. But Panarin, Seth Jones, Roman Josi, Nikolai Ehlers all returned. Duclair is back. Austin Matthews is out again. We were joking in the Discord. It's his hair plugs are, upper body injury. That's what word on the street is. Re-aggravated an injury that held him out in November. So he's going to be, we'll see what happens. Like they called him a maybe for Monday already. So that can't be good. Jeek is skating. Joel Eriksson-Ek, Jake Neighbors day-to-day. He left today. Other than that, like not too much going on the injury front. What do you say we get into some headlines, man? We got a bunch of them here.
That Neighbors hit, man. I don't know if you saw that, but like I think Bennett skated from the opposite side of the rink at full tilt and just absolutely smashed his elbow right into his head, into the boards. Like he remarkably nothing from, the Department of Player Safety and discipline, but like it's just an absolute Sam Bennett special.
And Matt Rampy's getting the book thrown at him.
Oh, that was rough too.
Yeah.
Heiskanen looked like he was okay.
Yeah.
But he was pissed about it. And I think it was, who's 24? I forget. It wasn't Ben, but somebody went over and sort of immediately confronted Rempe, but then the refs kind of pulled it all apart before anything really took it. But he took a solid shot and he has a bit of a history with that. So
that's the thing. So I think that hit from most anybody else, and you'll get the game misconduct, but you're not getting Zoom meeting or anything like that. So to me, that's like the reputation's really playing against you here. I think that's a big one.
As it should, man. Like again, we want to watch a skilled league for the most part.
Yeah.
Somebody that's just skating around playing 9 minutes a night and trying to elbow people through the boards has had a time and a place in this game, but it seems to be kind of fading away a little bit.
Yeah, buddy. All right. Should we hop into this one, man? Let's I'll kick it off.
Like everybody's talking about this, right? I mean, how could we have a show and talk about noteworthy talking points in the league and not start with Colorado and the goaltending situation? Like Mackenzie Blackwood has settled in pretty nicely. I do feel there's more of a tandem situation here than maybe folks are kind of hoping for. Colorado has one back-to-back over the next month. So like theoretically somebody could really go for a run here. But the problem is like, it's a great problem to have. It's a problem that Colorado hasn't had all year long, which is why the two Woods are here in the first place. But like both of these guys have been good. Like Wedgwood joined the team 2.5 weeks ago. He's played 6 games. They're 4-2. He has a 193 goals against average, a 932 save percentage, both of them top 10 in the league over that span. And then Blackwood joins the team. He's played 3 games and he's 2-1, a little over 2 goals against average, a 938. And he's second only to Allmark in terms of goals saved above average over that time frame. So like great problem to have. But I just wonder, do they let somebody run with this? Because, I mean, on paper, you could give either one of these guys a bit of a shot based on what they've done so far.
I think it's important to use the same lens that that we did with Olmark here. The wins that he put together, San Jose, Nashville. He wasn't able to take down Vancouver, still at a 917 in that game, so it wasn't a poor performance or anything, but his wins were against Nashville, San Jose. So I do honestly think we need to get more of a book on him. You know, I'm not trying to say this isn't a better look for him in Colorado than it is in San Jose. That would just be a terrible argument to have. But yeah, I mean, 1 month ago, Colorado's net was just an absolute shitstorm mess. And now we're, oh man, like who should get the starts? Because they're both playing great. Like it's a complete flip of a narrative. So it's a good problem to have. But for us in fantasy, we just got to kind of run our time out and see who winds up with the net share. Good 4 weeks.
The good thing is you got nothing invested in either of these guys, right?
Yeah.
If you're a Wedgwood owner, you
money.
picked him up off the wire and he's been found money. And if it's Blackwood, it's probably the same thing. So,
yep.
I mean, it'd be nice if somebody got a run, but I mean, you know, some perspective would help here too. Well, both of these guys are found money. I think they're both going to be valuable over the course of the year.
So in Vancouver, man, there were a couple, I don't know what you call them, pressers or post-practice interviews or post-game interviews or something, but I saw Quinn Hughes and Rick Tocchet in hallways and, you know, whatnot with a bunch of phones in their face, but they were talking about Elias Pettersson and JT Miller and the drama therein. And it seems like the boys really don't like each other to the point where like not even both of them can be on power play one. And this is just something the rest of us have to deal with, I guess, whatever drama they have going on. I don't want to get into like, I got to pontificate about what the drama may be about, or, you know, are they going to kiss and make up anytime soon? That's between them. All right. There's nothing you can find on Natural Stat Trick that's going to tell you, oh, is this fight sustainable? No, we just kind of got to run it out. And hopefully they can make peace. I do get the feeling that we're going to see some sort of like scuffle at practice that might kind of bring this to a boiling point or to a head. Like as long as we can get closure on this, it's going to be good for the team. It's going to be good for the players. They just need to fuck or fight and get it out of their system at this point.
That's such a great way of putting it. Like
get it done.
I'm just so sick of talking about Vancouver Canucks news and noteworthy talking points that have nothing to do with hockey.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're doing a lot of that, whether it's injuries or leaves from the team.
Yeah.
Like there's never been more news around this team. The one thing, again, that Vancouver is my favorite team. And, you know, again, I wish we were talking about more productive things than this, but in my heart of hearts, if we're looking at two very productive players and two players with very high ceilings, one thing JT Miller is to me is like, he's a dog. He's like, yeah, he's, you know, Nate McKinnon gets that nonstop in terms of, you know, what he expects of his teammates and sort of the reputation that he has. And when you win and you're wired that way, you know, a lot of the great players are, and JT's wired that way. And so he's the type of person, I think, that when he's putting in a certain amount of effort and he doesn't feel like it's being reciprocated or, you know, professionalism isn't there on the ice, he's going to not sulk about it or talk about it. He's going to tell it to your face. And I don't get the sense that PD is the same type of leader. Not that the team has asked him to be that, but I think you've got two very different personalities there. And maybe one where, you know, that's not the type of criticism that PD responds to. And I don't know if we're at a place in the game where we can talk like that, but like, I don't know. I mean, at a certain point, you're playing a man's game here, and you're going to have to sack up, and it says nothing to do with what he's going through mentally, but just physically, you're going to have to grind through what's ailing your game. And, I just, two such great players to not be able to be on the ice together at the same time is just wild to me. And it certainly affects the upside of the team.
That's what it's either going to end in like a practice fight, like a fight at practice, or one of these guys gets traded.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, and I know we've heard rumors, and most of it sounds pretty crazy to this point, but I mean, maybe it's not so crazy. Jim Rutherford's done crazier things, so I don't know. I mean, if somebody wants to take on Peterson's contract, well, maybe that's an option. I don't know. We've heard some of the.
Do you want to throw some wild destinations out there? I think JT Miller to Nashville would be.
Do you think that's the piece they'd move? I don't think they'd move Miller. Yeah, I think they tried to move Peterson over Miller.
I feel like,
I'm not sure. Pedersen.
Well, no, I know he's got like the bigger contract, and it might make more sense to try and get him out of there. But I think in terms of identity with the team, I feel like PD's more Vancouver Canuck than JT Miller.
Certainly historically based on who their core players have been.
Yeah. And I think that might play into it a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess Hughes is the captain.
Yeah. I just feel like maybe a team that's more wired to be receptive to the type of player that JT is might be out there. To your point, it'd be the worst to lose him. Whatever trade I feel like we'd make with JT Miller involved, we'd be losing it. Because he's such a good player.
Throw PD to Nashville too, because what I'm thinking is they need a top 6 center, and I think either of those players fit that mold pretty well. Montreal would be another one.
I was just going to say Montreal, actually. Yeah.
I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a team that couldn't do with a top 6 center. So they've got the leverage, Vancouver, if that's the path that they choose to follow. I don't know. It just seems so unlikely, but I've been surprised by bigger things, and we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, it's not good though. I mean, again, from ridiculous drama in Vancouver to I've got here. Yeah, something is rotten in the state of New York.
The entire state,
literally the entire state. And maybe the Islanders looking the best right now out of the 3 teams, which is pretty ironic considering how we've been talking about them. But yeah, like Buffalo, we can start with just the loss streak continues. 12 games. They're 0-9-3.
Lost again today.
Yeah, lost again today. So 13 games and counting. Like, there's nothing here that looks great. The goal differential is brutal. Like, it's almost double the next lowest team. Like 26 or 27 goals to the negative over that period of time. Like, and all the teams around them are the teams you'd expect to be there, right? They're beside Nashville, they're beside Calgary, they're beside Anaheim, right? The only ironic team that was in there was Vegas, but somehow they managed to score 25, allow 25, and go 7-2-1.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even when they're scuffling, they're not really. So, but I mean, Buffalo, like, their power play is brutal, their PK is brutal. Like, they don't play very much, right? Over the next month, they're like tied for the lowest amount of games played. So, I mean, it's going to be really hard to work one of these guys out of a funk when literally every single time you're going to start them, these aren't a lot of off night starts. Every single game you're going to start them is going to be a start-sit decision for you. Yeah. Do I put X in? Do I put Y in? Right? Every time you're going to be, it's not like an off night's easy, right? You get to put the player in. It's all upside, basically no downside. You weren't sitting anybody, right? If you had openings in your roster, but on none of those heavy nights you do. So my guess is most folks are going to be waiting a little bit longer for some of these players to turn around. So you're just going to have some more dead weight on your roster. So Buffalo certainly not fantastic. And the Rangers are still cheeks, buddy. Like, kind of all the same problems as Buffalo, except for somehow their special teams are like kind of decent. But
I'm trying to think of
just,
like who are the must starts on this team? I mean, it's got to be Dahlin, it's got to be Tage. Is there anybody
Buffalo,
outside that?
Yeah, that's got to be it. I'd say Tuck probably. He's had a good year.
Yeah,
I would start Tuck, Tage, only when he's back in. I mean, I guess Power, if you want to look at it, like somehow found a bit of offense. He's got 3 points in his last 3 games. Like maybe you get him up there and hope he does something on the power play. I don't know. Bowen Byram was up there too.
Cousins not bad. Cousins, he hits a bunch, which certainly helps.
You know what? They're paying about $100,000 by the hit, man. That dude has like a $7 million contract, and he's just been bad this year. He you know, it's almost like, you know, a couple years ago, starting to look like a bit of an aberration for him. But yeah, indeed, like I don't know what you do here with the Rangers. At least you can kind of look at it and say they're just kind of getting crushed at even strength, and that should over time start to, you know, work itself out, especially if they get out of this funk a little bit. Like they're shooting almost at the bottom of the league. They need some type of spark. I mean, obviously they've been trading, maybe another trade happens there, but they need something to get them going. I hope it's not a coaching change, because I think that'll just set it back.
This one, I don't know, the optics as a person who gets, you know, their New York Rangers news from Twitter and whatnot, but it seems like Drury is kind of the catalyst for a lot of this, and the players at ice level, it seems like a psychology thing. So is this another one that we just have to wait out? You know, like we're seeing it in Vancouver with, you know, just kind of let the boys be boys. But the Rangers, the only thing I can point to is like they might not be having fun right now. And that's why they got into this business. They wanted to have fun and get paid for it. And it doesn't seem like fun being a New York Ranger right now. You saw your captain get traded, second overall pick get traded. And they didn't get much of any. What did they get? Will Borgen back.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah. Tough look for the New York Rangers right now. We'll see what they do. They're gonna go out and get JT Miller. But yeah, on top of that, man, like Capo Caco gets moved over to Seattle. What do you think? He's on the top line right now. I can only imagine he's probably getting top power play time as well. I haven't really tuned into that game, but
yeah, I haven't either. I'm gonna check that out now that you say that.
Starts at 10, so maybe we can catch that one. But up against the Vegas Golden Knights, we'll see if Caco's on the top power play. I don't remember seeing any tweets about their power play formations, but he is playing on the line with Jared McCann and Matty Beniers. So top line time right out of the gate for Capo Caco. Seattle's not, I think they might have the worst schedule coming up this week, like 1 game, 0 off nights. So tough look to try out Caco coming into this week, but it's definitely well worth like a watch list type of thing. Seattle's that team that we've been talking about a lot. That's everybody's streamer level, and everybody is like outside of like McCann and Dunn and Montour is streamable. So if Caco gets some extended leash, fresh look on life, this could be fun.
I like that fresh look on life. Hey, listen, I'll tell you, moving back over to Toronto, it is go time for our boy Joseph Wall here. Like, there's been a lot of skeletons in this kid's closet in the very short amount of time that he's been in the NHL. And a lot of it's injury related, but like it's his time now. Like, unfortunately, Anthony Stolarz got that unfortunate, what was it, day-to-day that turned into like 6-week knee surgery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like this has been like the Leafs MO all year, but unfortunately, yeah, he's out to like late January, at least with knee surgery. Anthony Stolarz is. So the one thing that Joseph Wall can't do is he cannot let Matt Murray or Hildeby get into the mix again. He needs to take this and run. And he largely has. Like, he's been back now for a little over a month, like since November 9th. Joseph Wall has, and he's like 8-2 over that period. He's got a 925. He's rocking a 217 goals against average. Like, all that stuff is top 10 for sure, closer to top 5. And he's got wins over Dallas. He's got a win over Tampa Bay, Vegas, a win over Washington. And more importantly, he hasn't allowed 3 goals or more. Sorry, he hasn't allowed more than 3 goals since his first start of the year. I think he allowed 4 to St. Louis. So, I mean, they're certainly getting their $760,000 a year worth out of him this year. And then his sort of 3-year, $11 million deal kicks in at the start of next year. But, like, you know, it's the Leafs. That's pocket change on Robidas Island. So, Like, really, he's got to take this and he's got to run. He's got to instill some confidence in that building and in his head coach and in that office that he can play an extended period of time and sort of be the guy.
This is what we were talking about early in the season, even to the preseason, is between Woll and Stolarz. Like, we haven't seen, prior to this year, Stolarz' career high games played, I think, was 24. So for him to play a starter's workload, we were going to really get an idea of who he was. As a Flyers fan, I'm pretty close with Anthony Stolarz as a backup. And he's got his injury problems, like he's got his own injury problems, and the same can be said for Joseph Woll. So it's good that they do have this depth in Murray and Hildeby if need be, but let's hope it doesn't get there. If it is going to be go time for Joseph Woll here, they're going to have to like mitigate his volume, I think, because this feels like another kind of Mr. Glass scenario. Could go at any time. I got a couple of quick notes here. Levi Merelainen got a start for Ottawa. Look at that. Ollie Wolls in Boston is getting bottom 6 time and power play 2 time in Boston. And that comes on the heels of Elias Lindholm having 2 goals in 2 games. Really kicked out of the slump at the worst possible time for Oliver Wahlstrom, because I really did think that was going to be the changing of the guard, or at least like an injection of offense in some way. Tyler Johnson got bought out by Boston as well. Matt Murray got his first start. I had that as a note here, but we kind of covered that one. And Dilly Guns, we talked about that one in the week prior. So lots to go on there. Big week, man. And I with the roster freeze, we saw some trades. Alexander Carrier for Justin Barron, I think it was. Little, not super fantasy relevant trade between Nashville and Montreal, but still a trade that happened. Let's get into the week. Tips for the week. For me, just don't galaxy brain. And that's where I want to kind of start. Everybody is going to be at the same disadvantage. Your opponent's going to be at the same disadvantage, and all of your league mates are going to be in the same way. Now, the rest of the episode, we are going to talk about curating your roster, but I just want you to focus on not over curating your roster. 4 days worth of games this week. We're not going to be making drastic moves, cutting bait with anyone. I wouldn't even cut bait with like your fringe guys. There's not a lot of disparity between teams. There are some 1 game and 2 game teams, but everybody's going to be at this disadvantage where there's only, you're missing 3, you're close to half the week, right? So it's a good time to start thinking about guys who are potentially returning soon. There's some extra days of healing where news and games are not going to be out there. So there's extra ads potentially that you could be looking at. Guys returning in early January. Probably none of them on your waiver wire unless there's no IR spots and you can kind of just burn a bench spot until then. I'm thinking like maybe Ovi if somebody got super desperate, but outside of that, man, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want you guys selling the farm. There are a ton of chances to get your streamers in. A little bit of strategy here for this week in particular. New York Rangers, Carolina, Florida, Tampa, Washington, Anaheim, Utah. All play Sunday this week and then go straight into next Monday start. So if you double up on that, you go into next week 1 acquisition up, and you already have that Monday start. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all inactive. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there's tons of back-to-backs, which we're going to get into when we're talking goalies. Monday plus Friday, Saturday back-to-backs, there's some teams there. So if you make an ad and it's a Carolina Hurricane, a Columbus Blue Jacket, New Jersey Devil, Toronto, San Jose, Boston, those 6 teams give you an opportunity to hold 1 player for those 3 days, and then you can swap to a Sunday stream. You get 3 games out of 1 or 0 acquisitions if you make some of those match up going into Monday. Those 6 teams give you that opportunity, and one of those Monday streams can be a spot start if you want to. And one of those 6 teams that I just talked about, Carolina, Columbus, New Jersey, Toronto, San Jose, Boston, if you get one of those, then you're looking at 4 games with 2 acquisitions, maybe 1 if you rode Sunday, Monday into the week. If you turn that Monday spot into a Friday, Sunday stream, you're looking at 6 games, 3 acquisitions. There's just and this is where I kind of draw myself into a loop, because don't over curate, right? Like that's what I'm talking about. And I'm tongue tied just reading my notes here. But there's a ton of ways for you to really maximize the amount of games you can with a week that only has 41 games in total. So that's that's what I got. Don't galaxy brain it. Don't be looking at like best schedules, because there's going to be a ton of opportunity to make things happen.
No, I like that a lot, especially with you made a point too as well about the goalie minimums.
Yeah.
A week
Yeah.
with only 4 days of games. If you've only got a say 2 minimum in your league, you're probably okay. But if it's 3 or 4 games, then you might need to burn 1 or 2 of those ads on a couple of the players that we're going to talk about in a bit. But the holiday break is, it's tough to go 3 games in a row without hockey. But what it does is, very much funneling off of what you're just talking about, TJ, and the fact that it is a bit of a unique week. And because of that, the opportunity cost of your ads in a week like this isn't quite as high as it would be in a week where you really need to maximize games played, et cetera, like that. So my tip for this week would be to try to use the holiday break to make some longer term moves. That might be acquisitions if you're kind of taking a longer look at the schedule. That might be more aggressive trade offers that you're looking to send out. But use this break as a way to take that kind of, easing of pressure on the schedule and the grinding out week to week games played, and look a little bit longer term. Light weeks, odd schedules, they allow us for a bit of a wider perspective. And so, let the rest of your league min-max what is a pretty dog shit week, and use ads for the next, say, 2 to 4 weeks. Especially if you're, say, a top 4, top 6 team, someone that can withstand maybe a poor schedule in the next 1 to 2 weeks because you've got a pretty strong overall rest of your team, but somebody that might really start to help you in that latter, say, third of the season. So if you have the combination of a weak schedule and a bottom half GM, those are your trade targets if you are a top half GM, because you can afford to hold. So as usual, we're not just talking conceptually. Let's actually talk about what some of these situations would look like in real life. So over the next month, we have a number of teams that have pretty terrible schedules and that also, quite frankly, haven't been doing great lately. And we're going to hone in just on a couple of these teams, but there's certainly more. This is not an exhaustive list of the teams that fit this criteria, but we're going to start with Nashville, right? So over the next month, Nashville doesn't play a lot of hockey. So, is this the time where the Roman Josi or the Philip Forsberg owner that you've probably been doggedly sending trade offers to for like 3 weeks or a month, do they finally capitulate over the holidays? Like, Nashville has the second worst schedule in the upcoming month. Since November 11th, Forsberg has 1 goal. So that's what, like 6 weeks? He has 1 goal. Like, the 9 assists are nice in his last 6 games. He's helping you a little bit, but like he's literally giving you shots and assists. That's it. And like, this was a dude draft in like the 1-2 turn. So if you're an owner of Philip Forsberg, it might just be the time now you're ready to cut bait. And that could be somebody you could target. Same thing with Roman Josi. He's like a little bit of a pulse more recently, but like no points in his last 5. Then he missed 4 games. Then he came back and he had like an assist on a couple shots. So again, like, these are great players. It's just they have not been performing. And if that player happens to be on a roster that's in peril of missing the playoffs, we're getting to the point now where that GM doesn't have the time to wait. And maybe now's the time where they decide to make a move. We just finished talking about the exact same thing with the New York Rangers. They have a terrible schedule over the next month, but they have a really strong week 19 through week 21. So kind of important to future you. So the Panarin owner, the Fox owner, the Zibanejad owner, like, I'd say if you own Trocheck, you're pretty happy still. If you're not trading a Cooley or somebody, if you picked him up for nothing. But I bet you the Panarin owner is not too happy. And the Zib owner, if there even is a Zib owner, they might be on waivers. But if for some reason he's still owned, same thing, right? Like, those are antsy GMs that just are tired of staring at zeros, and you can help them with that problem. The other couple teams I have listed on here, TJ, like Calgary and the Islanders, if you can find something on that roster, either of those teams that's worth an offer, like both of them have a pretty brutal next month. So, they GM might not have the luxury of waiting for them to turn it around. Like Rasmus Anderson, darling of the first couple weeks of the season, has like 5 points since Halloween. And Noah Dobson, like he's got 8 points in his last 8, but nothing on the power play. His shooting percentages down, the IPP's down. You as a future looking owner can bet on that change, but maybe the current owner of Noah Dobson doesn't have the luxury of doing that. So be an active GM and use this time to target bottom half GMs with struggling players and use that to your advantage.
There's a lot of stink around these teams too. We're talking
There is.
Nashville, Rangers, Calgary, and the Islanders. Like, it shouldn't be too hard to be like, hey man, I'm kind of interested in this player that you might be tired of.
The stinkier the
by
better,
now.
man. That's what you want.
Man, that's gonna bring us into the week ahead, man. It's not looking great. There are a bunch of teams that are playing 3 games. 3 games, 1 off night. That's the best schedule that you're looking at. But there's only 1 off night to be had this week, and it's Friday. Saturday's got 11 games, Sunday's 9, and Monday's 13. So a lot of heavy nights, but not a lot of games. So I think there is going to be opportunity for us to be focused on those spot starts, those 1-day streams, like if you need to. And I forgot to bring that up in my tip of the week. If you do have goalie minimums that you have to meet, and there's only 4 days worth of games to get those, like you might need to stream goalies, and there's going to probably be other guys that have the same problem in your league. So maybe you want to get ahead of it. It's a super heavy Monday. I think there's 4 teams, 1, 2, a short 3 games of everybody playing on Monday. LA, Calgary, Colorado, Edmonton, Ottawa, Seattle, the only teams not playing. So chances are you're going to have a goalie for those days that is already on your roster. But the rest of the week, that's when you're going to need to fill in those spot starts. The 3-game, 1 off night teams: Vegas, Carolina, Dallas, Columbus, Minnesota, Buffalo, St. Louis. Detroit, Toronto, Chicago, New Jersey, Boston, San Jose. There's a lot of them. You probably want to check out the game grid over at FHFhockey.com. But other than that, man, I think the only thing that we really need to steer clear of is Seattle. 1 game played, no off nights. 2 games, no off nights. That's Ottawa, Edmonton, Calgary, Florida, Vancouver, New York Rangers, and Winnipeg. Those are some big hitting teams. I think maybe if there's some fringe guys on those 2 games played, 0 off nights, like you could probably move on. But the teams we're talking about, Ottawa, you can't cut bait with those big guys. Maybe, David Perron, Claude Giroux, you could probably get rid of. But Edmonton, nobody's holding on to like Pod Colson or anything. Calgary, Florida, Vancouver, like the big guys are going to stay, but the fringe guys can go.
Colorado 1 game too, right? So
Is that right?
Yeah, like if you've got a middle stat,
that's on the off.
He's probably going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Best schedules overall. I mean, I'll take any piece of those off nights. But like I said, there is kind of a dance that I like for this week. If you can ride one of those Sunday, Mondays into the week, and then get the Monday, Friday, Saturday, which are going to be these teams here. Let's see. What is happening? What? Sorry.
And then use that Sunday to go into the following week.
Yeah. So get 1 acquisition here: Boston, Carolina, Columbus, New Jersey, San Jose, Toronto. Those are the teams that are going to play 3 games, and then you can still switch over to Sunday. So that's 1 acquisition or 2, depending if you make your move on Monday or Sunday. And then you go into Sunday and you're 2 acquisitions in, and you're adding 4 games. And if you have 2 streamer spots, you can pretty much double up on anything you want to do with this and add 8 games for 4 acquisitions. Again, just keep an eye on your goalies, because if you have 4 starts that you need to hit, or 3 starts, or whatever it may be, and you're missing half the week, it's going to be harder to meet those starts. So, keep a head on you about that one. Is there any teams that you like more than the others? Like who Who has the best
Yeah,
schedule here?
I
Really?
think Vegas stands out just because of the couple games against, I guess really all three. If you look at Anaheim, the Sharks, and Calgary, pretty favorable opponents, I would say. I go a little bit further down the list for my second favorable. I think Carolina gets a pretty solid bump here just because they're really good. So anybody they play against, they have a strong percentage chance of winning. I like St. Louis. St. Louis plays Detroit on Monday, and then they finish Friday, Sunday, which is about as favorable as it could get. And they play Nashville, Buffalo. So, you got Detroit, Nashville, Buffalo. I like that. And St. Louis is fairly gettable in terms of players to stream, in terms of roster percentage. Like there's only 4 guys above 50%. So there's some players to be had there we can talk about in a little bit. But I like those. Buffalo, I think if they were ever to get off the schneid, sooner or later, they're going to win a hockey game, 13 and counting. But sooner or later, they're going to win. Yeah. To the death of the Martingale strategy, by the way, for anybody that's been trying to time Buffalo turning this around from a gambling standpoint, that would be crushing you right about now. They could write a book on it.
You thought Boston might have been the game today.
Right. But
no
it
dice.
Was not. No, but again, if they're going to turn it around, Islanders, Chicago, St. Louis on the Sunday might be a bit tougher, but those first 2 games, they might get one of them. The more interesting thing I thought to get into this week was the goalie streams. We talked about, opportunity for back-to-backs, and there's we counted 17 teams here have a back-to-back this week. No team has 2, so it's kind of a one-shot deal. One thing I did do, though, is I popped out a bit and looked into week 13. And of those 17 teams, 10 of them have another back-to-back in week 13. So any of the teams we're going to mention here are teams that have back-to-backs, not only this week, but you're probably going to get another stream out of that goalie the following week. So again, only 2 nights to talk about here. Normally we're firing off Mondays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, but you really only have Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. And there's 6 of them on Friday, Saturday, and 11 on Saturday, Sunday. And we kind of isolated 3 or 4 in each here.
Well, I got a good question here from Aaron that before we dig too deep into these back-to-backs, Aaron is asking our most fantasy platforms combining next week and the following week. And I'm playing on both Fantrax and Yahoo.
That's right.
I'm not doing ESPN this year, so I can't speak to ESPN, but I will tell you by default, Yahoo and Fantrax are not combining these 2 weeks. So unless your commissioner has, worked things out that way on purpose, you're not looking at it. So you can check that if you go into your matchup and then check the next week, and then it'll show you the time frames for that one, or just go into your settings, you'll find it. But Aaron, no, not by default, at least. We got Blake in the chat, man. Merry Christmas. What's going on,
Christmas, buddy?
So yeah, let's get into these Friday, Saturday ones. Definitely a couple to look at. What do you think?
Yeah, we got a few to eye up here. Again, I always sometimes I think about this from a perspective of is this the goalie I want to stream, or is this the team that I want to target against the terrible goalie that the other team is going to have to put out there? So we're coming at this from the standpoint of the goalie you might want to have in the net here to stream. And we're going to start with Boston. So they get back-to-back with Columbus on Friday, Saturday. And you want, I guess you could stream Korpisalo for Boston. You're not going to get Swayman. So Korpisalo, and really against either Columbus goalie is probably fine. Even when Columbus wins, it's usually 5-4 or 6-3, something like that. So they're not known for the save percentage. So I would say if you can pick up Korpisalo, stream him against either one of those Columbus goalies. I like the same thing for New Jersey. I think on the surface, you'd look at that and scream, why would I want any part of Carolina? But New Jersey's a pretty good hockey team, and Carolina's going to have to start Dustin Tokarski in one of those games. So the ideal scenario would be to pick up Allen and I get him to stream against Tokarski. I don't know if it's going to work out that way, but if it happens to, jump on that. And actually, same thing with Toronto. So we know they're playing Detroit, Washington back-to-back, and Hildeby's going to get one of those streams. So ideally, if it's Detroit, you auto-add probably. For that matchup against Washington, I'm probably pausing a little bit. What are you doing?
Korpisalo, for sure. I got a stat here that's really going to put the final nail in the coffin. Columbus are 0-5 in the second half of back-to-backs. They've been outscored 25-8 in the second half of back-to-back. So if you can get that Saturday game against Columbus, chances are you're going to be walking away with a win. And that's even a good look to stream Boston skaters against Columbus in that second half of back-to-back because they've been outscored 25-8 in those games. So chances
Keep it
of
coming, TJ.
yeah, buddy.
The
They're
confirmation bias.
giving up 5 goals a game so far this year in the second half back-to-back. So Columbus is a really good opponent to exploit here. So give me Korpisalo on Saturday. That seems like a lock. Who do they have next week? If you're holding on to Korpisalo, if you can make that
Boston,
sort of
who do we
investment.
have the next week here? Next to yeah, because I'd want to know who they're getting into. They go Toronto and the Islanders on Saturday, Sunday, Jan 4, Jan 5.
All right. Yeah,
So,
I mean, if it would make sense that he would get the Islanders game.
Detroit Islanders would be perfect if you could build it in a lab, but we'll see how it actually comes out.
There you go. Saturday, Sunday. Let's move on to those back-to-backs. What I'm noticing is we're getting that Friday, Saturday. You're getting a lot of like double headers, right? Like the
Same team.
Same team, that kind of thing. So not so much with Saturday, Sunday, but we have a much bigger array of teams to choose from, and this is great because Friday, Saturday, then Saturday, Sunday. If you are finding yourself needing a goalie start just to get the stats that week, there's a lot to choose from, quite a bit to choose from. Korpisalo being kind of the one lock of the week, Friday, Saturday, but yeah, there's some choices here.
Yeah, there's a few other juicy starts here. Yeah, I like Philly. I mean, again, you're our resident Philly expert. So, either Philly goalie against Anaheim, you can pick any of them up. So,
yeah, I don't trust a single one of them.
I didn't ask if you trusted them. I'm just saying, would you start one of them?
I'd be more confident against that Anaheim game, which might be Harrison if they choose to go him the first half of back-to-back. I personally would save him for LA, but if you get Kolosov versus Anaheim, I think that's still a pretty good look. Anaheim's having some trouble on the power play, which is one of the weaknesses of Philadelphia, giving up goals on the power play. So either Anaheim turns it around against Philadelphia, which as a Philadelphia Flyers fan, we are the streak breaker or the slump breaker. So the chances are that power play will really go off. But yeah, that Anaheim, that does look like the God, we have this bird around here. God, I'm going to get on a fucking tangent here. We have this bird called the killdeer that makes its nest in rocks on the road. And when like a predator's coming, it'll like make it look like its wing is broken and then like fawn, that kind of thing. And that's how I feel this game is. It's a trap game. It's a killdeer.
I was just waiting to see where you're going to go with that analogy.
I don't even know. I'm all fucking gummied up. This whiskey sour is gone. I'm fucking talking about
That's
birds.
Right.
On a
You're talking about killdeers and faking their feather performances. Something to do with Philly. So I guess in all of that,
I guess I could have just
start whoever. Yes. Start whoever is playing against Anaheim with very little confidence.
Well said. 0 birds per 60. I love the way you play.
There's a few other on here that do jump out. I mean, Tampa gets the Rangers and Montreal back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. So, like, I guess if you're win hunting, you could start Jonas Johansson. I wouldn't expect, a valiant effort when it comes to save percentage or goals against, but you're probably going to sniff out a win against both of those teams. Like, might be the same thing with Pittsburgh. Like, they get the Islanders, like you said, back-to-back. Yeah. And so, like, Ned or Jari, if they're available, you could, I think this week's version of the Pittsburgh Penguins is probably the better team against this week's version of the New York Islanders. So you could probably start either one of those guys if you needed a spot start. But
Jari's looked pretty good lately.
Yeah.
I don't think he's winning tonight. I think they're down 2-0 right now, but he was like 6-1-1 or 8-1-1 or something in his last handful of starts. He's winning.
Yeah, he's probably owned, right? So we're probably thinking a Ned spot start.
Yeah, I'd be into that. Well, actually, there has been a bunch of stink about Jari lately, so I wonder if he is available.
Just go check, right?
24%. God,
It's got to be
I would have bet the over, hard over. But yeah, 24%.
just for name recognition alone.
You can go out and get Jari, man.
That's right. And against the Islanders, either
both.
side of that, sure.
Yep.
I mean, I'll take that.
Oh, yeah.
Washington, same thing. They get Toronto and Detroit. I don't really want any part of the Toronto game, but if the stars align and you can pick up Lindgren, and he gets the Detroit start, then I think that would be a spot start that I'd be interested in. And same thing with Edmonton. They play the Kings in Anaheim. So if Pickard happens to get, he played today and they won actually. If he happens to get the Anaheim start, because you're not going to get the skin bin, but if Pickard's there and he gets Anaheim, pick him up.
All right, buddy. That's going to bring us into our, and this is something we were talking about before going on the show. Like, you know, it's getting to a broken record at this point, but that is the structure that Fantasy Hockey Podcast go in, right? And we're going to talk about the teams. We're going to talk about the players. And Vegas as the perhaps the best schedule of the week. We're going to talk about guys, you know, Dorofiev, the same folks that we've been talking about a lot. But if we're talking about hot streaks over the last little bit, I think that's where guys like Victor Olofsson and maybe some guys that haven't gotten the same amount of airtime as usual start to kind of like creep into it. And what do you think? Who would be your like top pick if available? Let's say under, I don't know. What do you think? 35%? Is that a fair spot to start?
Yeah, I think there's multiple options here under 35%. I mean, the couple players you just mentioned, Dorofiev, William Karlsson, Victor Olofsson. I mean, all these guys are under 20-ish% ownership. And like Dorofiev was demoted down to power play 2, so that kind of caps a bit of his upside. He's still shooting the puck a lot. Like he's, 3-ish shots a game, if not more. He's just not converting at quite the pace as he was before. He's still line 1 at even strength. But I mean, Olofsson got that elevation, and he's also dual eligible, which is nice. Left wing and right wing, 12% owned. So he's probably going to be there unless somebody picked him up over the last day or two. And he's going to give you pretty primo deployment. So a really streaky player, but you're not marrying him. You're picking him up for a week. So hopefully he stays hot.
He's streaking hot right now. 4 goals in 4 games played, 2 of them on the power play. So I think he would lead the pack for me really quickly. Behind him is Dorofiev. And I think Karlsson would be a good look too. Problem is you're, 2 heavy nights and a center only. Karlsson might not fit. So I'm a big fan of Olofsson here as the marquee streamer from the marquee team. Carolina might be next up, and they're kind of bums when it comes to like availability or like options, right? Like who Roslovic, is that who we're going to be talking about again? What's really to be had here?
Jordan Martinook, and like there's guys, don't get me wrong, like we're dismissive because of how owned these players are, not because there's not good players. There's just, if there's 7 players over 60% owned and they get the majority of the ice time and score the majority of the points, like, at the end of the day, we're getting kind of into the fringy areas here. So, I mean, I do like Martinook. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. Carolina does offer a number of things here. If you're looking for bangs, like, William Carrier's there. All that guy does is hit and throws in a point every now and then. But they got players that play a little bit up and down that roster. Like Martinook's probably going to be available at 3%.
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, Roslovic is going to be there. You're not going to get anything that's near that first power play. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, top 5 guys are all over 80%. That's not happening. Yeah. Miraculously, Brent Burns is over 50%, which is, again,
there's a huge cliff, and it's just like 20% and then 3%.
Yeah, so you could find some games for these guys. I mean, even if we kind of just look at some of their most recent deployment, right? Like they move Eric a lot of these guys up and down their lineup. Yeah, I don't know what his performance has really been like recently, but like you could really pick up any one of line 3 on this team if you're really looking to stream. But again, does it make sense to grab one of those players, who most of which have been kind of cold lately, versus some of the hotter players we've been talking about?
I am just terrified of Carolina in any long-term commitment that isn't like one of the top players. Like if we're not talking Nichas, Aho, Svechnikov, then it's just hard to really tie myself down to any one of these guys because, a week ago it was Roslovic. The week before that, it was Jarvis. The week before that, it was this guy, that guy. And Rod Brindamore, just game to game, shift to shift, period to period, is jumbling his line combinations. So we can talk about Eric Robinson right now. Chances of him being on line one tomorrow, it's not 100%. Hell, it's probably lower than 50% at this point. It depends how they do tonight. But even him as the best like deployment stream that we could talk about, he's line one with no power play time. And then you go back to the well of Roslovic and what line 4 power play 2 is just not a ton to talk about. I think Kakanyemi could be like a pretty safe play, but again, that's center only. We're talking about 2 heavy nights here. So maybe you get him in on Friday, as long as your other centers have dual eligibility and you can work your roster around him. But this is a really hard team to find any value, I think.
They're so top loaded in the scoring. Like when some of these periphery players to just pull up the stat sheet and take a look, they go a long time in between adding contributions on the score sheet. So just be prepared for what you're adding. It's going to look great when your games played goes from, 29 to 33 or 32 or whatever. But it's like, what are they actually going to do for you when they play those 3 games that you've, what was your word from earlier?
Killdeer?
No, you don't want to over what your lineup wasn't.
Curate.
Lineup. Curate. Yeah, no, that was a uni word.
Think of it like mashed potatoes, right? So I've already talked about birds. I'm going to talk about mashed potatoes. If you
we threw a Shakespeare reference in earlier, like we're covering a lot of ground here.
This is crazy. Christmas podcast.
Act 1 Hamlet.
We're ready.
For
we're ready for Christmas break. But yeah, if you over mix mashed potatoes, it starts to get sticky. Don't do that to your roster, guys. All right, it's got to be perfect. Run it through the sieve. You're fine. Next up, Dallas. Are we talking Dallas? What's the next team you like here?
I mean, I can get into Dallas again, like fairly owned.
Oh,
I mean,
you were a big fan of St. Louis. Why don't you want to?
I do like St. Louis. Yeah. Well, first of all, St. Louis is more fun to talk about because most of the team you can get. So,
True.
Like, let's start with some options for some listeners here that they can actually pick up some of these players. So, like Kairu's 83%, you're not getting him. Rob Thomas is 81%. Parayko's just over
really
the Mendoza line. But then, man, like Buchnevich is 50%. So we'll call him not usable in our streamer format, but like he might be there in your league. And like Neighbors has got a day-to-day on the hit we talked about, but we'll see what that looks like going into the week. But Dylan Holloway, Braden Shen, Justin Falk, Broberg, like you got a number of players here that are actually contributing. And they're all available, right? All I see is plus signs in Yahoo.
Yep. Braden Shen. I've been holding him for this week. I kind of wish I would have went for Holloway, but I think those 2 guys just under Montgomery, maybe it's confidence, maybe it's usage. Like they're getting good minutes, 16.5 for Holloway, 17.5 for Shen. But the way that they're being used, line 2, power play 2 for Shen, line 2, power play 2 for Holloway. That line is rolling right now. They're building some chemistry. And just under Montgomery, it's been, they've turned the page a little bit. So I think both of these players are maybe not what we've known them to be. I do want to say that like it's not a brand new player, but we've definitely seen brand new stats from these guys. And I've been pleasantly surprised with Braden Shen. 1 goal, 2 assists over his last handful of games, but the hits, the shots,
bangs, man.
Yeah, he's doing it. And Holloway is not shy about that either. So 2 hits a game, over 2 shots a game. He's got 2 goals. But
there's a little bit of something for everybody here in St. Louis. There's even a goalie probably. I mean, I'm not Hofer's certainly available.
And I mean, Justin Falk is still rolling with power play 1 with Cam Fowler coming in there. His deployment on power play 1 was kind of thrown into question, but he's still got it, and he's still banging around, but he's just not one for a ton of points. You're not going to get a ton of points out of a power play guy in St. Louis. So I like Falk for the floor periphery, but just outside of that, don't get too hopeful. I think Holloway and Shen and maybe Neighbors, if he comes back, those are probably your best bets for offense.
Yeah, all those guys between 20 and 25% owned, and every single one of them are dual eligible. So you are probably going to get them in your lineup.
And that was St. Louis was the team you were talking about, might have one of the better schedules. They got Nashville and Buffalo on that Friday, Sunday. So Definitely very attractive. Right up there with Vegas, who has Anaheim, San Jose, and Calgary. So, man, it would be hard to choose. I don't know. I think I would still have Olofsson, but I think Shen and Holloway start to creep in there before I start thinking about William Karlsson. Yeah.
You know why? Because Olofsson would be the too easy thing to look back on and be like, geez, the guy scored like 4 goals and whatever the last 3 or 4 games. Like, of course I should have added him, right? Like, yeah. Right? Make the right, wrong decisions. We talked about this like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Make the right, wrong decisions, right?
Oh, man. So that's going to bring us to Buffalo, eh?
I think we should go to Buffalo. Like I say, again, the last thing we've been talking about is offensive upside for the Sabres. But one thing that does happen when teams, go into the shit can for like the better part of a month is their ownership starts to drop, and players that maybe didn't or weren't available before do become available. So we look at rostership percentage at Buffalo outside of Thompson, Tuck, and Dahlin, who are all like 90% or higher. Then it's like power and below at below 40. So like a lot of these guys are going to be there. There's defensemen you can pick up. There's line one forwards you can pick up. There's power play contributors you can pick up. There's guys who bang you can pick up. So again, just like we were talking about earlier, we've got lots of options here, just like St. Louis. So I don't know, man. What do you need? What does like Santa TJ need for his fantasy team? And we're going to find it here on Buffalo's roster. God, what do you need for next week?
I need one of my streams to turn into a hold. Personally, I think I have 3 guys that are worth getting rid of. I think I'm holding Shen, Falk, and Garland right now. So one of those guys needs to be good enough. That's what I need. But if I'm looking at Buffalo's roster, Owen Power over the last 2 weeks, granted, Dahlin's been out, his deployment has gone up, but he's got 7 points in his last 7 games.
That's right.
This is, and he's doing a little bit of block, and the shots have certainly gone up. Zucker, maybe the unlikeliest of candidate, is doing quite a bit. You're not looking for power play points here. I think their power play has been, bad feels like an understatement. Just god awful. DFL over the last 2 weeks. So
yeah,
there's options. Like if you're looking for category coverage, I'd probably lean towards a Dylan Cousins at 24% rostered. JJ Peterka is doing a little bit of damage right now, and his ownership is right around 25%. So, man, there's definitely something there for you. If your team needs a certain something, I guarantee Buffalo's got it. It's hard to guarantee that offense is going to come, but I like their opponents. They're playing the Islanders, they're playing Chicago, they're playing St. Louis. So, the chances as good as any that they can get it in.
Yeah, Paterk is interesting. Dual eligible. He plays line 1, power play 1. Cousins is going to, unfortunately, see only, but is going to give you more of that Banks coverage. But like, there's players here that I would definitely take a swing on. I would take a swing on a Paterka, absolutely, over that period of time. Again, the guy shoots, and he's got that deployment. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
But I like going into these weeks again where we talked about you have the ability to take a bit of a swing here. You know what? If Cousins takes a game or 2 to get into it, so be it. But you might have found something that's a little bit longer than just I'm going to hold this guy for 2 games.
Yeah.
And, it starts again. The best thing that can happen for you in terms of trying to acquire these players is for them to be terrible for longer, because people are just going to value them less, right? If you do believe there's upside there, you have to have there's got to be a thesis or like something there to say like
the price point drop.
Yeah, why do I want Dylan Cousins or JJ Peterka? But once you've established that, this is only good things that they continue to slide. So if it takes a few extra games to kick in, so be it. But I like some more of the options that I'm seeing here and the deployment and the overall ice time that they're getting compared to some of the players we were talking about a lot further down the roster, in a Vegas.
I'm trying to find another team that might be worth like honing in on. But again, this is, maybe Columbus, but I talked about how bad they are on second half of back-to-back. So this might only be a 2-game week for them.
Dallas Streamers are kind of owned and have been for quite some time. Minnesota, there really isn't.
Did Marchment play today? I think he was a game time decision. I can't remember if Marchment played. But if he's out there, go for it.
He did play.
There you go. But like I said in the tips for the show, I think this is a really good week to just kind of like take it day by day. Don't really concern yourself too much with like filling up an entire week for like padding games and things like that. 75% of active game days this week are heavy nights, so it's going to be hard. Set your lineup first, find out where your vacancies are, and then just kind of like reverse engineer your streamers that way. I think it's important to know, Olofsson might be the guy, right? But if you're looking at Vegas Monday, you left wing, right wing is both packed full, and then Sunday, same deal. Like, are you going to be able to get 3 games out of what might be the best schedule? So just like add that extra layer into it. Set your lineups first, then work your way back, see where your vacancies are, and go from there. And I think just pay attention to your goalie starts. I don't know if that gets prorated with a truncated week or anything like that. Should we flip a coin for Victor Olofsson as the streamer of the week? Or
yeah, we can.
Say...
I mean, I you know what? I'll let you have Olofsson. I'll go away from that.
Well, no, let's make it interesting. Whoever wins tomorrow's game between Terry and Cooley, right?
Okay, all right. Gets Olofsson. All right,
and then between the two of us, right now, we can pick whoever second place gets.
Yeah, I got a bit of a backup. I would absolutely stay in St. Louis and probably go with Braden Shen. I mean, I don't think it's fair to pick Buchnevich because he's 50%, but either Neighbors or Shen, I'm absolutely in for. The day-to-day with Neighbors had me a little bit nervous, but that was, end of game Friday. He's been out Friday, the rest of Friday. He's been out Saturday, out Sunday, doesn't play the first game until Monday. So if Neighbors plays, I would, sorry, we can't say that if we don't know by Monday morning. So if his status is changed by Monday morning and he's actually available, then I would pick him up over Shen.
Let's call it like a 2A, 2B.
Yeah.
So if
Shen Neighbors for me.
Yeah. Shen Neighbors. Okay. So yeah, throw Shen at the top. All right. So if Terry does better than Cooley, I'll take Olofsson. But if Cooley beats out Terry tomorrow, I'd actually go Holloway, Shen.
Oh, okay. All right.
And Neighbors. So
staying in St. Louis though.
If I wind up without Olofsson as my streamer of the week, I'll take Holloway, because I do think sticking in St. Louis is probably the best plan of action right now, just based on their opponents. That Friday, Sunday is really nice. I'd be happy with that.
Well, I hope Troy Terry falls on his fucking face for you, and I get Victor Olofsson. Best of luck, my man.
What is it? Utah versus Anaheim tomorrow?
That's it.
Fuck. Why do I now need to watch this guy?
I don't know, man. I got to tell you though, like the more every time I pull up the player card for Dylan Guenther, it just gets better and better. So I'm liking my chances with anything that's Guenther adjacent, and Cooley seems to be Guenther adjacent. So
we got a question here from PT Parrots Ron in the chat. He's asking if Olofsson is on Hurdle's line still. Can't find any updated info. The last thing I have is from Daily Faceoff, updated today at like 2:00 Eastern time, that where is he? Olofsson is with Carlson and Pearson on what appears to be line 2. So not playing with Hurdle. Yeah, he's getting that PP1. So I'm all for that. Olofsson does seem like the prize of this week, but I'll take Holloway number 2.
Hey, Hurdle's ownership like kind of catches me off guard a bit every single time I see it.
What's he at?
I just want to see what he's pulled up. It's really high, like 67%. And
I'm an owner.
He really hasn't done much of anything.
You know what it is? He's streaky to a point where like he'll have an entire good week and then a bad week and a half, and you're like, well, he did have that really good week. Like he's always fresh enough in your mind that it's like, nah, he's good. And then he's not hard to bench when you need to. I don't mind him. Like he's got 1 assist in his last 4 games. Yeah. So he's in the middle of one of those bad weeks.
Right.
But he was good enough over a little bit. But
was certainly not dropping him going into this week. So
fuck. Don't tell me I have 4 streamer worthy guys, but gotta get rid of one of them. All right, let's throw up, where do we got? Style? I thought it was brand. They just changed it to style here. Do I not have music anymore? What the media assets. They changed a lot here in StreamYard. Okay. Well, anyway, that's me learning on
that note.
Yeah. Throw the outro music. We are going to be taking a break. The guys are not going to go with a weekend preview, so head over to FHFhockey.com. Check out those Friday, Sunday streamers if you need to. And that's going to be your weekend preview. It's, we're taking Christmas off. We're going to hang with our families. We're going to get drunk, and we're going to hang in the Discord. You can find us there or on Twitter at FHF Hockey. Yeah, that's it, man. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you have a happy and safe holiday season. And if you are going to drink too much, just make sure you got plenty of turkey and stuff in there. Anyway,
there you go.
Love you. That's a wrap.
Nice. Happy holidays, everyone.
Adios, turd nuggets.